Welcome to Bloom, where empowered sensitives share their journey and how they may learn to make an impact. Welcome, Ana Pashyanti, whom I've known for quite a while, and so happy to have you on my show.
Oh, it is a pleasure to speak with you always, Yola. I'm really excited and I really admire your show already because you really bring out a lot of depth, and it's quite refined. Those are the words I would use to describe it. So, yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Anna. And we can go into quite a lot of depth together, being highly sensitive, both of us. And I just briefly want to introduce you. You are a guide and teacher for meditation and energy healing. Amongst other things, you've had a life before this life that we will get into. And you are a rare specimen because you are a high sensation seeking sensitive person who is at the same time very introvert. And we talked about that a little bit, how interesting this spectrum of high sensitivity is, because you get all kinds of combinations that people wouldn't necessarily associate with high sensitivity. So that's probably the main thing we want to talk about today. But I'll just hand it over to you briefly to explain what you feel that is important for this conversation about yourself.
Sure, yeah. I don't think I'm the only one on the planet like this. I may not be super common, but I do think there are other people with this combination of high sensation seeking and high sensitivity, and even introversion, yes, because I guess it makes life very interesting, yes. For sure, I am kind of allergic to boredom, and I can never be bored because I always have things I'm thinking about, projects I'm working on, even if I'm by myself, especially if I'm by myself. I'm never bored. But if I'm in a situation or a place that seems boring to me, I'll probably not stay very long. And even before I knew I was highly sensitive, I knew that I loved novelty. Uh, I thought I was addicted to novelty even, which I don't think it's a problem. It hasn't caused a problem in my life, really, but it could span on a range from, always wanting to eat at a different restaurant and have different cultural experiences, to traveling, to foreign languages, foreign language films, traveling to different countries, all the way to jumping out of an airplane, which I did when I was 18, just because it was available to me. And I was super excited to do it. And I was with two non-sensitive friends, and yet they were scared on the plane. And I wasn't. I was the first one out, just so excited to just have this very deep and intense experience. So I guess that's kind of where the combination plays its main role in my life. It's that experiences are very intense. They have a lot of meaning also. It's not just intensity, but it has a lot of meaning. So I'm going to put everything that happens to me or everything I do and everything I learn, I'm going to put everything into a larger map of my understanding of reality. And so it all has meaning together because it's all playing a role and it's all connected with everything else. And so I would say that's where the combination really, yeah, flourishes in my life, is because it gives everything a very deep and intense meaning, whether that's the same meaning as for someone else, maybe not, but I would say that's how I experience it.
So thanks for this beautiful explanation. And what comes to mind is that it's not high sensation seeking, it's deep sensation seeking,
Sure. Yeah.
which is certainly within the realm of high sensitivity that we experience things very deeply anyway. And in your case, you extend that realm into consciously choosing where you want to experience this.
Yeah, and it can be very difficult also. It can make my life a lot harder
Tell us
because,
why.
yes, because I will literally choose to travel and to actually one of my goals in life is to see as many places in the world as I can. And so that means I've already traveled to, let's say, between 50 and 60 countries. And I continue to seek that out, even though probably the worst part of it is going to the airport with everything that entails. And I just drag my feet. I can barely make myself get to the airport because it's so because I'm so sensitive to to the difficulties there, all of
Mm.
that.
Hmm.
And yet I still make myself do that. I still make myself go through that because I have to explore. I have to have that exploration and I have to have that another piece of the puzzle in my map of reality. I have to expand that. And so I just kind of put myself through things that really can make me tired and really can make me suffer a bit more, perhaps.
Mm. So in a way, it's that innate curiosity
Yeah,
that, in your case, leads to travel,
yeah, definitely.
wanting to know other cultures, and we'll get to that too. Um, I just wanted for you to explain to us how that introversion is connected to this deep desire to, connect with other cultures and travel and seek, because you didn't say I'm seeking the thrill, you said I'm seeking the depth, but
Hmm.
in a way that is always in an exchange, you know. How do you live with that paradox?
That was a huge challenge in my life. I actually grew up barely able to speak to anyone who was not in my immediate family. I could not bring myself to produce words, even if it was something like my grandmother or my aunt or uncle, especially not in school, even though I knew all the answers, because I was so sensitive, I could sense where the teacher was going and what kind of answer she was looking for,
Mm-hmm.
So I knew everything that she wanted to hear, but I would never raise my hand. And if she called on me, my face would turn bright red. I would be so embarrassed. The kids would laugh. I mean, I really had a stone wall in between my brain and my mouth. I could not produce the words. It was really a block. And so perhaps maybe I was looking for other ways to express myself because then I just spent my childhood reading books. I spent my childhood creating artworks and dancing, ballet, different types of dance. And then later, I was learning languages, and I was so interested in learning foreign languages. Even as a kid, I had the TV always onto this one channel where there were foreign language films with subtitles, and everyone said, "Oh, well, Anna's been on the TV again because it's on that channel." It's just I was constantly learning something, and so in a way, perhaps it's my search for an appropriate or an effective way of expressing myself because I mean, it's taken me more than 4 decades to get to the point where I can appear to be expressing myself normally, but I still struggle with it. It's not something that I'm going to be an expert at perhaps, but um, I guess it's that tension between trying to express myself and not wanting to. I mean, I live in the forest. I'm basically a hermit. I don't see many people at all. So it's really interesting to have that combination. I guess when I'm forced to do it, yeah, I can do it. I have learned to do that. But even learning to speak to people, that took me a whole year when I was around 19 years old, my first year in university. I
Mm-hmm.
actually I actually struggled and tried and forced myself and taught myself and practiced and read books all about how to speak to people, to overcome shyness, and it took a whole year. And finally, at the end of the year, I had a kind of a breakthrough where I actually was just pretending to act like other people acted. It was a pretending, kind of fake it until you make it. And my brain suddenly rewired itself. Ah, that's what it feels like to talk and laugh and be extroverted. Aha. Because my brain didn't even know what it felt like.
Your brain
So
and
that
your
was my
body
turning
didn't.
point for that.
Yeah, and your body didn't, right? Not just your brain,
Yeah,
your body didn't. I
yeah,
think also the body needs to be rewired.
definitely.
Yeah. So I always find that story so amazing, Anna. How you did that, basically on your own.
Yeah. Yeah, it did empower me because I was also extremely depressed. I had that year was a year of depression. Not the first time I'd been depressed as a teenager, but that year was completely filled with me being depressed, just in my room, not really doing much else except trying and forcing myself to learn this ability because what empowered me was realizing I understood why I was depressed. I knew the problem. I wanted to finally start to talk to people and I couldn't. And that was the cause of my depression. And so I became so empowered when I could figure out the reason and actually, through a lot of difficulties, overcome it. That was a huge empowering moment for me too.
Yeah, I bet. If you, no, let me phrase it that way. We're both into emotional processing and we know a lot about trauma, in our own lives and work with other people. Would you say that maybe this extreme introversion and your problems to express yourself verbally were actually not how you were born, but a twist of whatever circumstances you found, or how would you say that there is a connection?
It's it's very likely. My family was we loved each other, but there was so much conflict. I mean, there were arguments every day, crying, fighting between my parents mostly, but obviously it would rub off on us too. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was just, yeah, so it was just kind of miserable most days. They loved us, yes, but they weren't good with each other. So yeah, it was just so much conflict. I think I was always introverted, but I wasn't maybe always so petrified of speaking. Um, I never really needed to talk when I was very, very little. I remember being 4 years old and being at my first birthday party, actually a friend's birthday party, kind of like a neighbor's birthday party for little kids around 4 years old. And I was just in the corner the entire time, not upset in any way. I was very peaceful and calm and happy, but I was standing in the corner observing everyone, not participating, not playing the games, not eating the cake. And the girl's mother, kept asking me if I wanted, to participate. And no, I'm fine. I'm good. Just here. I'm cool. I'm happy in here in my corner. No thanks. You know, before I felt the pressure to participate and be like everyone else and to fit in. Really, no, I didn't realize I was supposed to fit in, and I was fine. I was fine just in the corner.
Mm-hmm.
And so later on, it became very embarrassing, very shameful, very difficult for me. But I think the quietness, the peaceful, just observing life, I think that was always in me. So yeah, my family experience of conflict was, I'm sure, what made it uh, was probably what made me suffer through that instead of just allow me to be myself. Yeah.
Hmm. Could it also be that I just that thought just crossed my mind because you said you live like a hermit and you live in the middle of nature, um, probably even in the jungle.
Yeah.
Yeah. So sometimes with the sensitivity, we actually communicate on a different canal, we would probably say, a different wavelength. Many things are shared and said without actually saying it.
Hmm.
And a lot of us have more connection to nature and the way you communicate in nature. I mean, many tribal people will say if you tune into the right frequency, you can actually talk to plants, right? There can
Hmm.
be a communication. So maybe in a way you were plugged in more into that telepathic sort of communication and found it very difficult, within the circumstances of your family to have to adapt to that more aggressive, outward, and often inauthentic way of communicating. Could that be?
Yes, because eventually I learned very quickly to become kind of overly empathic and to sense everyone's emotions. And then my big decision in my life with, like at 7 years old was to always make sure I was helping people feel better. So never wanting to hurt their feelings, always needed to make them feel better because someone was always sad, someone was always feeling bad about themselves, etc. And so it really was not about expressing myself at all. It was just speaking was just to say the right thing to make someone else feel better.
Yeah. And we had talked about that in another session, that that's a huge energy leak for sensitive people,
Yeah.
is always making sure that other people are okay. And that's where most of our attention, most of our energy goes, in order to be safe.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to be alone the rest of the time because I didn't have to do that when I was alone.
Exactly. And then it's not quite clear whether, hang on. Right. So we had some technical problems here, which is not astonishing when knowing that you sit in a jungle. So, what I wanted to say is that, introversion is very often confused, or let's say this challenging environment, or this being in other people's energy field all the time, and not expressing yourself, is very often confused with introversion. And when the more you heal, the more that extrovert part that you also have can come out, and get some daylight and get some exposure, and you can start to integrate that part as well into your body, basically, in your life.
Yeah, that's a great point you make because now I can go to a huge gathering of people and have fun because it's a very intense experience. Yeah, so I can just float in among the crowd and just have a great time and talk to whoever I see and kind of turn on the introversion like turn on the extroversion like it's just a button I push. But then, of course, when I get home, obviously I'll be tired, I'll have to rest, and then I won't seek out any other communications or interactions because I am at heart, I am still introverted, but now, after healing a lot of what was blocking me, I can kind of turn on the extroversion. I can teach in front of a university class. I can go to a huge event, doesn't matter. And I can kind of do both, even though I do still tend toward introversion. I can now do either one, whatever is required of me.
Yeah, I think this is a very important point. Like I also said in another conversation with you, if I'm very introverted, but give me a stage where I can either dance or sing, or speak about something I really care about, I'm completely different. People think I'm really extroverted, but it's just a part of me, that enjoys that in a very specific context.
Yeah.
And it actually gives me energy. It's not necessarily something that then I feel totally exhausted. No, I'm like on drugs, I'm really high from it.
Yeah, totally understand. Yeah.
Yeah, but I couldn't, and I wouldn't want to do it 7 days a week.
Yeah, exactly.
At least I don't think I would. Let's find out. We'll see.
Well, if you're so inspired, maybe.
Yeah, maybe exactly. Um, so I'd like to segue into boundaries and relationships, because you've had very challenging lessons to learn. And, you said in the conversation before this podcast, you said that was a lesson I did not want to learn. And I think, we all have lessons we don't want to learn. And for you, that was about relationships and boundaries. And I know that is a big part of your work, the work you do, to help people to find balance. So if you want to, just pick it up somewhere. And
Yes, yes. So, yes, learning boundaries and learning that I can take care of myself also instead of self-sacrificing constantly. I did refuse to learn that lesson actually until it almost cost me my life, is the truth. Um, I, like I said in like I was describing my family situation, yes, I learned to kind of sacrifice my own expression or interest or well-being to make other people feel better. Yeah, that's kind of how it started. And then throughout life, you know, I kind of continued to do that, but obviously the stakes get higher. And so it ends up being things like when I was living in Germany for 11 years and the culture was just different. You know, the I had a relationship that was very happy, with a boyfriend at the time, and the people around me became so envious that they really started attacking me, just verbally, kind of aggressively, always trying to pick a fight. And of course, from my background, I avoid conflict, or I used to avoid conflict,
Mm.
like the plague. I'd never wanted to ever get into another argument again in my life. I had so much of it as a kid. And so I would walk away when someone started trying to pick a fight, but that would enrage them even more because apparently that was some kind of it was a cultural difference where they felt disrespected, like I don't know, the culture was so different that the more I tried to avoid conflict, the more they would aggressively try to attack me and pull me into a fight. And so this went on for years. And so I had a decision point at that time. And I still refused to learn the lesson then because I thought there were only two options. One option was to completely close my heart, become very hard-hearted, very cruel, mean, and just aggressively attack back or defend myself and really not be kind anymore. That was the one option I observed. The other option I thought I had, and I only thought there were two, was to keep my heart open and still give everything of myself and still let people hurt me and not protect myself because that was more in line with the values that I
Mhm.
held at the time.
Mhm.
I thought that was the right thing to do. And so I chose to keep my heart open, but in an unhealthy way, to still keep that doorway open to be attacked, to be hurt, to be judged, to be criticized constantly without protecting or defending myself because I thought that was the right thing to do. So even then, I did not learn the lesson. It wasn't until a good few years later that I was actually in a position where I was helping someone. This time it was someone who was actually uh, came from a war zone and, didn't have much. They didn't have money, they didn't have a lot of things in life. And so I was like, oh, okay, this person really needs help. I really try to help them, emotionally also. Obviously, they've been through so much trauma. I even though it was uncomfortable, everything they were asking of me, because they were asking too much of me, I couldn't say no because I didn't want to hurt their feelings. The same pattern from the childhood again. And so I kept giving more and more and more to this person who was very much taking advantage and even stealing from me and lying to me and eventually wanting to control me completely, where I actually ended up being held hostage in his apartment with the door
Mm.
locked, living in a
Mm.
world of lies that he had created for me. So that I was afraid to go outside because there could be some spies or some mafia, somebody trying to kidnap me or whatever the lies were. It was a world of lies. Nothing was true that he said, all to control me and to take everything I had, basically. I was paying for everything. I mean, just insane. And eventually he started threatening my best friend who was still in my life. A lot of people left my life at that time because I was not communicating. And so in order to basically save my best friend who was being threatened by this person, I actually went to my best friend to kind of cut the friendship, because that's what this abuser wanted, blah, blah, blah. And that was when I was able to escape because my best friend said, "What's going on with you? What's your problem? Like, this is not right." And
Mhm.
so I got out because of my best friend. And I hid in his home, I hid and I was afraid to go outside now because the abuser was coming to stalk me. He was stalking me. He was searching everywhere for me. He got the police involved, making up false, things that I did just to get the police to look for me, to find me so he could control me and stalk me and whatever he wanted to do. Insane. I mean, only a person who is high sensation seeking would even get themselves into this problem. even if it was from good intentions. But I literally had to trust the universe that I wasn't going to die. Like I literally did not know what was going to happen, you know, the next day. So yes, I did escape because my friend helped me, thankfully. And only then, when I realized later that I literally could have lost my life there. Like he was literally becoming violent, punching holes in the walls, everything. I literally just escaped with my life. Only then did I learn to defend my boundaries, to protect myself, to take care of myself. If something didn't feel right, if I didn't feel like giving all of that, whatever that person wants, it's okay to say no and I can leave and I can even cut off the contact. Only then did I learn that lesson. It
Wow.
took me how many years? I was uh, almost 40 when I had to learn that lesson.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you there. I think so many of us allow way too much, things that other people, years and years earlier would say, "Excuse me,"
Yeah,
and we just don't. And then we get ourselves in, so um, deep into a story that it's almost impossible to get out.
yeah.
Yeah,
That's how it felt. I felt trapped. Yeah. But it was a trap that I had allowed to happen. I could have walked out so many times, and I didn't want to because I
yeah,
thought it wasn't right.
yeah.
Boundaries, people, we have to learn boundaries. Goodness gracious.
Yeah, I mean, I can honestly, I can really relate to that. There's certainly also in my life that I ask myself, why did I not walk away 10 years before? And it's
Yeah,
because in the end, we make the other person more important,
yeah.
right? And something that also struck me is that to me also has a connection, now that might be right or wrong, to your childhood, is this afraid to go outside.
Mm,
Which, if
yeah,
you translate it, if you don't speak, you don't go outside.
true.
Um, so
Yeah.
that, is a very deep topic. I would like to, and thank you for sharing that. I'm sure that's very valuable to a lot of listeners. I would like to go back to Germany. I do live in Germany and I can really relate to your experiences. There's a lot of unspoken aggression.
Mhm.
And there is this, um, I think you framed it before really well. People attack you so they are not attacked by you. That
Yeah.
is something in German society that is so strong. And it has, for sensitive people, it's actually quite difficult, I find. Even though if you go back in history, some, the most sensitive scientists were Germans. Um,
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure when that changed, but um, what I find important is that you found out that there was a karmic connection, why you had to go through this with this specific set of people around you. Would you mind telling us a bit about that?
Yes, it was very eye-opening because, like I said, I had had years and years of difficulties with a lot of people in Germany, most of the people that I knew. Not everyone. I have some great, wonderful friends there, but the majority of people really just, like I said, were kind of really aggressive. And so I kept having to come back to Germany. I tried to leave many times. It was kind of a love-hate relationship, because I would go, I would travel, I would go around the whole world, and I would still have a reason I had to come back. Maybe it was for work, it was to just send a simple invoice or some kind of something, maybe I ran out of money. There was various reasons that I had to keep coming back to Germany. I actually felt like I could not get away. And so let's say, yeah, around 10 years after I had entered Germany for the first time, I went through a past life regression. I had someone guide me through it, because for whatever the reason was that I decided to work with this person. And it was very, very interesting because I was able to see myself, a past life that I had in Germany in 1565, I believe it was, in the 1500s, where I was actually killed by the people there in that village in Germany for being a witch. Obviously being a witch means, I was probably using herbs and plants to heal sicknesses and things like that. I mean, so also in that experience, I came to understand that a lot of the same people who had just burned me at the stake or however they killed me were reincarnated basically in my life in Germany now. And so that may have been part of the reason they just instantly did not like me, the second we met. And it made so much sense. And what was even more surprising was that immediately after that session, like maybe a month or two, everything fell into place for me to move down here to South America, where I am now. Everything came into perfect harmony. Uh, two friends of mine, decided to go with me, and everything just came into perfect harmony to permanently leave and move out and move down here to South America. And so it really was like one chapter of that sort of karmic lesson had been closed. The book had been closed and I could finally start a new chapter. So that was really, really life-changing for me. I think it's super interesting to see what different kinds and sources of knowledge are at our disposal, especially for sensitive people who maybe can pick up on things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do believe we live in a time now where we need to close karmic lessons with people. It's really, really important. And it's very important, I think, for sensitive people to let go of energies that are not our own energies, that we picked up either from our ancestors or our family members or our friends, or even just people we walk by on the street, that we sense that they have a problem and we go, thank you, I'll take some of that for you.
Yeah.
And it's time to stop that, because we will never be able to be empowered if we don't learn that lesson.
Yeah, and especially about picking up other people's energies, because obviously, like you mentioned, in the supermarket, you can just, be a sponge. What I've been observing now is that, yes, we are very susceptible to that, especially as sensitive people. Um, but it's actually, it can be used as a gift. It doesn't have to always be a bad thing, but we have to know how to work with it because, for example, we have more of a two types of energy fields, the way I'm seeing it, like an inner kind of bubble. Yeah. Your inner energy field kind of around your body, I don't know, not so huge. But then you have an outer field
Mm-hmm.
around that inner field. And so the outer field is what you can use to just allow other people's energies to move through the outer field wherever they need to go. It's kind of a service almost that we're providing because energies like to move, they like to
Mm-hmm.
travel, they like to change. And so I hope this is making sense because what we don't want is we don't want the energies to come into our inner field because that's where we start feeling them. That's where we put them in our bodies to store them. That's where we get sick because of holding on to those energies. And then we try to identify them also. Like, why am I feeling like this? What is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Why? And actually, our job is not to identify them and also not to process them. If we're going to keep processing other people's emotions, we're never going to be done.
Yeah.
We'll never even get to our own. And
Mm-hmm.
so once we can send those out, it may just go through the outer field and it'll go wherever they need to go. And so in that way, we're kind of our outer field may be working, but we are not affected in our inner field. I hope that makes sense. It's a little,
To me, it
oh,
makes total sense. And
okay.
that gives us the opportunity for you to, because I know this is part of your work, to explain a bit more how you got from being an editor and, working with languages to, teaching and guiding meditations and, bringing people into healing. So,
Oh, yes. Yeah, it's just that is where my life changed is when I started my conscious spiritual path.
mhm.
And all of the healing that I did along that path eventually paved the way to realizing that it was something I could give to other people too. because I've been through it all, because I understand all of it, and so I love doing that now. It's my mission now, not only to, help people heal and become stronger and become happier, become more connected to the divine. Not only that, but really to empower them to know how to do these things for themselves. So I actually end up teaching a lot more than just practicing because I think empowerment, step by step, slowly empowering myself throughout my life, that has completely changed me and allowed me to become the strong person I am now because it was always a lack of empowerment. It was always a disempowerment throughout my life that I've observed that caused me all those problems. I learned from that, great. But it was personally giving my own power away to other people that really held me back in so many ways. And so empowering others to learn how to process their emotions, for example, and to learn how to work with their energy fields, to clear out the energy fields, for example, to process what is actually theirs to process, because healing pain and trauma inside us, not only does it make us feel better, not only does it make us happier and more peaceful, but it actually can heal our bodies, you know? It can do wonders for our physical condition. And it also just allows people to handle whatever comes their way. It's a kind of resilience where you're not being a hard stone kind of resilience, but it's meaning that you just process what's coming up. You understand that everything that happens in life is showing you something, is allowing you to learn something, or maybe to heal something. And every emotion that comes up while you're experiencing that is exactly what you need to heal. And so everything that happens in life can be of service to you. It can help you in some way because it's showing you when you're like, if I'm in a situation and I'm feeling angry or sad, that anger or sadness is for me to process in that moment. And that is how I heal. And so when we learn to do this, we feel so much more powerful, not power over someone else, but we feel so much empowered, so much more empowered in our own lives. And that literally saved my life, was taking back my power. And so, yeah, I would say that's my mission now, honestly.
Yeah, we share that mission. And
Yeah.
it is a profoundly important, and it's also the reason for this podcast, for others to understand that for many sensitives that's a journey, but that it is possible. It is possible, and then we can go out and create an impact. And if it's just an impact of love in my own family, and just is the wrong word, I'm not necessarily talking about leadership of a whole country. I think it's the sum of people that pick up that, talked about that before, sovereignty, and then expand that or teach others how to be empowered.
Yeah. And the best way to teach is to be the example.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Yeah. I had a quote here. Yes, because you have that on your web page. And I would like to use that as a closing words. And that is, you write, profound change is possible.
Yeah.
So, my last question is always, what did I not ask that you think is important? Maybe around that quote.
Yeah. It's that anything is possible if you believe it, if you are open to that, if you are willing to go through the changes that are necessary, anything is possible. Because honestly, consciousness, as they say, it really is the strongest force in the universe. And that means that we are not powerless. That means we are in control of our lives to a certain extent, much more than we've been told. We don't have to be dependent on so much authority and institutions to tell us what is right in life. We can learn to feel truth in our bodies, and so it's all possible. There is nothing that's impossible, and there's nothing that cannot be healed. That is my position.
Mm. And don't let the bully in the room tell you otherwise, because it empowers them to subdue you. So
Exactly.
just don't believe that story.
Yeah.
Believe that profound change is possible. Sovereignty is
Always.
possible.
Always.
Being empowered is possible, even for highly sensitive people.
Especially for highly sensitive people because
Exactly.
yeah, because we can go through even more intense changes because of our depth of processing and depth of understanding. I mean, our changes can be even bigger than someone who's maybe less sensitive, honestly.
Yeah. Amen to that. Amen to that. So, Anna, thank you from the depth of my heart for this wonderful conversation. And we did make technology work for us.
Yes, thank goodness. Yeah, it was such a pleasure. I always love talking to you. It's just so not only profound and deep, but also very graceful. You have so much grace and it really just allows the ideas to flow. And I really feel seen and understood. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Anna.